Okay, welcome to a Rowany TV special. This is to celebrate the 125th year anniversary of the club. And what better way? Well, we've got Peter Addison, one of our more senior members, who's just going to share with us some of the history of what we enjoy at the Rowany Links.
Right, well, I've been asked to do this little talk, and it's what I've tried to do is contact the families and try to get the correct information off them. So what I've got to say is hopefully correct. So I'm going back, the early one is 1926, H.P. Kelly. And again, all these people in the early captains were all businessmen. Very, very few, if any, of the working class people were members of the golf club then, because money was so tight that every penny that they earned of the working class went on food and generally running the house. And again, the competitions were run solely for the businessmen on a Thursday afternoon, a Saturday and the Sunday, so they could build up the numbers and have a decent number in the competitions. So I've gone back to 1926, H.B. Kelly. He's another one who was in Bayview Road in the Caledonia Guest House. And what you've got to remember as well, that shortly after the First World War, everything was very tight and there was no money really to put back into the hotels. But I managed to get, when I was on holiday up at very north of Scotland, from an antiques dealer who had cleared a gentleman's house out, and he had been to the Isle of Man on holiday for many, many years, and I managed to get from her lots of very old holiday information, holiday brochures and all. I've got lots of them from Port Erin, Port St Mary, of the really old hotels. And in this one, he's got to mention that they now are bragging that they've got running water in each bedroom and spring interiors, mattresses. So this is like a sign of how things were tight and they were trying to get off their feet. So that's H.B. Kelly. Then 1930 we come to John Edward McCard, and he was a builder in Port Erin, very well known builder. There were lots of McCards, brothers, cousins, and I'm indebted to Keith McCard, who came round the house and gave me some information on McCards, the builders. And they built lots of very good quality houses round the island. And the first job that J.J. McCard's father built was to build the four-road school at Port St Mary. So that's John Edwin McCard. And thanks again to Keith. And then 1935, 1936 was Walter Kelly. Now I knew Walter quite well. He was the owner-manager of the Balqueen Hydro, and very clever and shrewd businessman Walter was. He had good staff. Fred Hoyle was his entertainment manager, and he organised cycle rides to Russian Abbey for strawberry, and cream teas out there. They had walks up to Craignish and the Howe, and all round about the southern area. The Chasms, where the Chasms Cafe was open, and they went round a lot there. But Walter also owned the farm down by the railway station, and lots of fields round about. There's fields on the right-hand side as you play the 11th. Walter owned all those fields up, most of them anyway. And they had tennis courts. He was wonderful for entertaining his clients in the hotel. And he had one of the longest seasons on the island because he organised at the very early part of the season bridge tournaments, which extended the early part by a month. And at the end of the season, he organised another bridge tournament. So he had 2 months extension to a season, which was a clever part, a clever part of business to get that extension and earn him yet more money on the season. And they had tennis courts down by the railway station where the bowling club is. The bowling club has been going now for almost 100 years, but unfortunately there's a little bit of, I don't know what the word for it is, but a little bit of, argy-bargy. They may lose the bowling club this year, which would be a great shame after almost 100 years, but hopefully with some negotiation they can, recover and keep the bowling club going again. It's a huge asset for youth and everybody in the south. It's a wonderful bowling green, that's looked after very well, but hopefully that, that can survive all right. But remember as well, shortly after the war, I caddied for Walter at Castletown. This was in one of the Island Championship games, and the Golf Links Hotel was a smart hotel, probably one of the best on the island. And again, shortly after the war, food rationing was still in. So again, the working man ate virtually what he could, afford. And to go in the hotel and have a meal there, the food was absolutely wonderful. Food which I'd never seen or tasted before.
Can I ask you a few things about that? That's really interesting. So that's the Bay Queen Hotel, which is the absolutely huge building, isn't it? Port Erin area. I mean, what sort of numbers were coming in? I mean, how busy was it in the summer?
He was packed from the start of the season to the end. It was alcohol free, and this is what scored him all the brownie points. People then were more religious than what they are today, and to have an alcohol free hotel was a bonus. If they wanted to drink, the people who wanted to drink went down to the Carrick, the Bay, wherever they went, the Albert, and they had to drink down there, and it left the hotel alcohol free.
What was the hotel like inside?
Very good. An old Victorian place, which again on modern standards, no lifts or anything, which people need lifts now for, the modern people, where people don't want to climb stairs now. It's all totally different.
And where did the holiday makers come from, generally?
More or less from the northwest. It was well known that it was easy to get to on the boat or the plane to Ronaldsway, but generally it was the upper class people who came there. They were generally worth a few bob because it was a more expensive hotel than a lot of them in the south of the island, but it was very well run. And also as well, Walter owned the farm, Ballaqueeny Farm, and Bill Oates ran the market garden there for them, so they produced an awful lot of their own food. My father worked there, he was one of the chefs, and the quality there was fantastic, all the food. And they kept the same crew on to do all the maintenance during the winter.
So let's get this right, the hotelier, he owned the farm.
He owned the farm.
That supplied the food.
Yeah.
Quality.
So he was a clever businessman, and good luck to him, a pleasant man. I knew him well, and he had all the people round about him. All the staff came back year upon year upon year. And this is where I met my wife Maisie as well, and fell in love and got married, and well, the rest is history. So again, a lot of the girls who came over to work in the summer, they married Manxmen, they stayed here and never wanted to go back home again. So, yeah, that's Walter Kelly. The next one, Jack Kegan, 1937, Jack was. Jack was well known as well. He owned the towers right at the top of the prom. He was a commissioner for many years, did a lot of good work in Port Erin. His son John was in the Coast Guards. I think he was an officer in the Coast Guards. And John's daughter Ruth is very well known for doing a lot in the Manx singing, the Manx culture. She's been on lots of television programmes, the BBC radio programmes singing, going back to various areas in France and Brittany to sing all the Manx culture.
Yeah. A real talent.
She's brilliant singer and a very good advert for the Isle of Man. So.
And a lot of golf balls in the back garden, no doubt.
Thousands probably in Jack's garden.
Just so you know, it's just by the 15th green, if you've hooked one in there.
Hook one on the left is over in Jack's garden, and that was it. And they're pretty well stayed there. They're probably still there from the war.
Thousands of them.
Yeah, 1938, Horace Kermode. Now, he was a relative, again, of the McCards through marriage. He was another builder. His business was behind the old picture house in Port Erin. He had a joinery business. He worked in that for quite a number of years. And then Roy, his son, he took over the business. Roy was never a golfer. But Roy did a lot of building work out in Spain. And then when he got fed up commuting from here to Spain, he packed in the Spanish work and then came back and started work with Keith McCard again. So, yeah, Horace, he did a lot of good work as well. L.J. Crichton, I don't know much about him. But they had the Golf Links Hotel pretty well in the middle of the prom, and on his old advertising literature, he boasted that he had the best view of all the hotels in Port Erin, right on the central point in the middle of the prom.
You wouldn't argue against that, though, would you?
No, it was very good.
So that's 1939, so...
39,
I think if we just take a short break and we'll come back after the war years.
Yep, okay, fine. Yep, that's fine.
Right, Peter, it's part 2. We had a break from 1939 to 1945 for the war years. So can you just remind the audience what your age is? When were you born?
1939. April 21st, the Queen's birthday as well, and Jasmine Higginbotham's. We're all on the same day. So coming up for nearer 81 now than 80. So
we're running through the captains. Peter has taken note at the club of the captains through the years, and we're just talking about captains that he's picked out and who he knows a bit of history.
Yeah.
So 1947, are we?
1947 is Jack Clegg and Betty Clegg. They ran the Hydro again in the centre of the prom. Wonderful view over the bay. Very popular man. And Betty, of course, as well. They ran the hotel for many years. Jack went off to war and then came back and then had to start the business up again. In 1947, things must have been pretty desperate then because the aliens had been brought over then from various parts around Britain, and there would be little or nothing done to the hotel for the start of the war till, I suppose, 1947 when Jack finally came home and started up and got the business running again. The aliens all went back home again.
So we're talking about Italians and Germans and
also,
foreign nationals.
Anybody who was fighting against Britain type of thing, they were rounded up from anywhere in the country, and the Isle of Man was the safest place to put them. But a lot of the aliens who came over were extremely clever people. The Amadeus quartet, musical, fame. They came over, the famous artists, who I can't remember the names now, but they came over, and they weren't doing any harm to anybody, but they were.
They'd have quite a presence in Port Erin, though. They'd be noticeable, yeah.
Everybody in Port Erin, they were the women and children who lived in Port Erin. But a little story about the hydro. I was in Aden for 2 years in the Aden conflict, and I did my time there and came back, and the next posting was to the 47th Army Missile Regiment, was a unit in Dortmund in Germany, and we had to go on manoeuvres up into, this was a unit that was run jointly by the Americans and the British, and it was a huge missile unit. The missiles must have been, 30, 40, 50 foot high. They were massive things. And we had to go on manoeuvres in a huge forest in northern Germany. And as you do, you've got to go in the forest and camp up and get everything camouflaged up. And we had the night off. The sergeant who was in charge of us said, well, that's it, boys. And 3 of us were told if we went down this little track through the forest, but do not go off it. The forest was that big. If you went off, got lost, you would never, ever come out of it again. And at the bottom of the track was a little tiny village. And everybody who worked there were working virtually on the forestry side. And they were never well paid. But he said, sometimes they've got something going on and you may be able to get a pint there. There wasn't a pub, but they had various little barns and things. And anyway, went down the track and you could hear all this German unpapa music going on. We knocked at the barn door and the fella came to the door and he said, you can speak English all right, what do you want? And so I said, well, can we, I'm beer Betty. And so I said, well, where are you from? One of the fellas said Manchester or wherever, another fella somewhere in Britain. And then he asked me, where am I from? I said, the Isle of Man. Oh God, he went mad, hands went up in the air, pushed us inside the barn and jumped up on the stage, stopped the music, and he rapped it on for a while. And the audience were clapping and stamping their feet, and I thought, oh hell, this is pretty well curtains for us now. Anyway, he put me with a family, and they again could speak very good English, but it transpired that their family, after the First World War, there was no work. Germany was flattened again, there was no work, no money, but some of the relatives from this village had gone to Britain to join their family and, just to get some more money. But when the Second World War came along, all these people, again, a lot of them from this little village we were in, they were rounded up and they were brought to the Isle of Man as aliens, and talking to them, shot in a million, but they were brought to Port Erin and talking to them, and they knew Betty quite well and all the staff, and they'd actually stayed in the hotel that Jack and Betty ran. So a chance in a million, but yeah, it was a good story. We had a damn good time with them, and no doubt ended up rather plastered going back to the unit. So that's Jack Clegg and the hydro. But again, tourism started to run down. Visitors, you know, it was cheaper to go to Spain, Portugal, and have guaranteed sunshine. Jack's hotel closed down, and Jack and Betty had to leave the hotel. Some trustees came in, and the pair of them were very bitter. Through a lifetime's work running the hotel, they ended up with virtually nothing, which was very sad. Jack bought a house just a couple of doors up from me, and I used to go and have a, natter with them and put the world to right. And Betty was, she was quite upset that a lifetime's work had gone into the hotel and come out with virtually nothing. The trustees just sold the whole business, the building, and well, that's it, it's all in apartments and everything now, and we haven't got a hotel in Port Erin hardly, So that's Jack and Betty from the Hydro, Jack Clegg. We used to play we don't play for the Clay Cup now, do we?
I don't know, we've got to look into this, because Clegg is quite a name in the Rowany Golf Club that goes back to the 1890s. Whether it be the same Clegg? Rowany, the area,
possibly,
Rowany farm, maybe?
They may be related. But I don't think we played for the Clegg Cup now. That's a cup again without sponsorship. The club can't survive, so any cups that are not sponsored, unfortunately, they're left on the
shelf.
On the trophy shelf, yeah. So there we are, Jack Clegg. Next one, 1948, Thomas Arthur Quirk. Now, we used to play for the Quirk salver, and again, the Quirk salver, I tried to find it in the trophy cabinet and couldn't find it. Generally what happens, the person who won at last, if the cup isn't going to be played for the following year, the last winner tends to keep it. So where that is, it may be somewhere in the trophy cabinet or somewhere in the club. I don't know, but
check that dresser.
I couldn't find it. But again, I've got photographs here which Jed may scan later, and that is the Quirk family. These are the people who ran the grocer business down on the bottom promenade, down on the quarterdeck as they call it, and this
so
is
where was this shop? Where was it?
That's down on the quarterdeck, virtually next door to the
where the ice cream places.
No, not quite far.
Okay.
On the other corner to the bookshop. You've got the bookshop on one side, little road going up the hill, and then this is where I think the children, the Beehive, I think it's called.
That is a great photograph, isn't it? It's a really well stocked shop, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look at that. So that's Ralph, Elaine and Arthur.
That's
We sell Ceylon tea.
Yeah. But again, these people were clever. They could. A lot of the stuff was bought in bulk as well. Tea, sugar, coffee, maybe not so much, because coffee was rather expensive in those days. But they had little paper squares, and they could put the stuff in it, wrap it all up, put it on the counter, and job done. Maybe this is what people should be thinking now, but
we'd all love to turn back the clock.
Yeah. But the Quirk business started with a gentleman called Jeremiah Quirk. He lived in Dalby and then came into Port Erin. And then, I didn't know this at the time, but you've got to serve your time to be a grocer. And Jeremiah went off to Toxteth in Liverpool to learn the trade. He came back and then started the business down Quirk's Grocers, down by the quarterdeck, and he had Elaine, Ralph and Arthur who ran the business. They were brother and sisters, so it was 100% family business run. But again, this is straight after the war. There was no money around, nobody had any money. And a well-known artist, William Hoggett, lived just the other side of the bay. And William, he wasn't well known at this time. His paintings were very good, but totally unknown. It wasn't until latter years that the Hoggett paintings, now they're worth many thousands. But William used to come in, he'd order his groceries and didn't have any money to pay for it. So he would offer them, once he ran up a bit of a bill, he would offer Ralph or Elaine a painting to pay for the groceries. And Ralph had, must have been about 8 Hoggetts in his house. This was on Main Road, because I used to go to see him, Ralph, quite often and have a natter with him. And he was riddled with arthritis then, and he was bent double, and he's a man, very religious man, and he never ever complained about his ailment. The toilet was upstairs. He used to have to go up on his bum to go up and then come down and then flop down in a rocking chair, which almost tipped backwards, but he couldn't bend his back. But he was a very entertaining man as well, and a brain as sharp as a needle, and many tales told of the business, how people, again, couldn't pay for their groceries, but they give it on tick, on the understanding they pay back as and when they can, when, you know, they got a bit of money. And 99 times out of 100, the people were very good. They paid their debts, you know, shilling a week or something like that, and they ended up all right and managed to get their money back. But again, I'm indebted to Bill Long and Jane Long from Alexander Nurseries, who gave me, you know, the information, and they gave me that photograph, and also the family are all on this. This is the White Boys, which is, it's like the maypole dances. It's that sort of thing, but it became politically incorrect. I think they had to black up, and then
So who's in this photograph? Who have we got?
You've got them all in the back. You've got
all the Quirks.
Port Erin. Oh, this is 1926. This is the White Boys. So you've got all the family, Ralph, Elaine, and Arthur. Yeah,
Bruce.
Bruce. Yeah, he's another member of the family.
So just so you know, it's I think it'd be quite inappropriate now, but what a photograph, 1926.
26. Yeah.
We'll put that on the scanner later. That's fantastic. What an artifact.
So again, without doing this little talk, you wouldn't get these photographs going back all these years. And it's so important to keep the history of Rowany alive and have these photographs, and hopefully, you know, we'll get them all framed, put them all up in the club for everybody to see for, well, as long as they can. So that's Thomas Arthur Quirk and the Quirk solver, which we'll have to see if we can find somewhere and get it out on view again. That's 1948. 1949, Norman Madrill. Norman Madrill, he's very well known in Port Erin. Fisherman, he owned the Sunbeam fishing boat down in Port Erin Bay. He was the chief lifeboat launcher for many years. Good footballer, won 2 junior cups in a row. And also, he probably, maybe for the first time in his life, he joined the war and had to go across to the mainland. So he may have gone across before, but at this time, again, harping back on no money, people didn't travel, they didn't have the money. So during the war, Norman was called up, and he had quite a checkered history. Coming from the Isle of Man and being a good seaman, he was put into minesweeping. So he did a year or two here in Britain, in Britain, looking after our home waters, looking for mines, probably around about the Liverpool area, the Irish Sea, North Sea. And then he became that good at it that he went to America. They wanted him out there to teach the Americans how to sweep for mines. And his son Swise gave me a few photographs of Norman, which Jerry again will scan. But he was telling me the tale that they were sweeping the channel and a boat came down, and they went over to him and told the master of the boat, don't go down the channel because we haven't swept that for mines yet. And the captain of this boat said, he said, I'm going anyway, whether or not. So the captain of the mine super said, well, he said, you've been told, you've been warned, we've told you not to go, but if you choose not to take our advice, off you go. Anyway, off the skipper sailed, got down a couple of 100 yards down the channel, hit a mine, and the boat blew to smithereens. So that was it. Norman did his service in America, came back, and this is a report in one of the papers about Norman and the minesweepers. So, it's a lot of these fellas are very brave men, and you don't know the history of them until somebody brings it out. But again, harping back, Manx seamen were always very much sought of, and I suppose we've got Millentown and Fletcher Christian and all those, they were all say good sailors, and so that's Norman Madrill, 1949. And then Dr. Arthur Kelly. Dr. Kelly, he's again very well known in Port St Mary, a local doctor, along with Dr. Arthur Kelly. He was the top of the prom next door to Skull Pottelmara, and the other doctor in Port St Mary was Dr. Stitt. He was right down the very bottom end of Port St Mary. Good old-fashioned doctors, treat anybody for anything. And yeah, another good man from Port St Mary. 1953, Leslie Hookie Sheard was his nickname. Leslie worked in the Isle of Man for quite a while, then he got a job across. Leslie was a wonderful reporter. He did time across in the newspapers, reporting over there, then came back, and then he was our sports correspondent and put all the reports in the papers, and he had a wonderful flow of words which he could make a poor story into quite an exciting story. He had that ability to get the words to flow out, and
right through to the 1990s.
Yes, he came back, and he did. Yeah, he did.
He's got a son. I know Brian. I know at least one son. There might be another one.
Oh right, yeah. I don't know his sons. No.
He was a super golfer though, wasn't he? He was keen, wasn't he?
Good golf, yeah. Probably his nickname described the sort of shot he hit with Hookie. So yeah. So that was it. Yeah, good man to report everything in the newspapers. Leslie Hookie Sheard, 1953. Yeah. And then Jack Woodworth, 1955, local chemist in Port Erin, had two sons, Jeff and Michael. Jeff was still a very good golfer. He only plays the odd time, never practices, and can knock it round in, the low 70s, and very good golfer. But again, Jack was another pleasant man, and again, with the competitions being on a Thursday afternoon, Saturday and Sunday, it allowed the likes of Jack and lots of the other business as well to go and play in the competitions. I need a little drink of tea now.
You're doing very well, Peter.
Drying up
well
a
indeed.
bit.
This is fascinating. I'm on the edge of my seat, but I'm seeing the names and the families are still in Port Erin, aren't they? A lot of these people that we're talking about today.
A lot of them are, but a lot of them unfortunately have gone upstairs.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. Eric,
which is ironic when we talk about the next one.
Yeah. The next man, 1956, Eric Quayle. Eric Quayle was a scallop fisherman, and he was a real character. They used to sit in the corner of the bar and drink White and Mackay's whiskey, and the more he had to drink was the more I think he used to, shall we say, stretch the truth on his tales, but very interesting, very funny, and yeah, I think he had the Bradder Hotel, didn't he, here? Yeah. I think you're just in the corner here.
He actually lived in this house.
Yeah.
So this is his house, and he was linked with his wife was Doris.
Doris,
and then they were related. Doris was related to the Watsons. I think.
Yeah, that's
right.
With
hotels and fishing boats. And
that's right.
Lovely.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say something about him. What were we going to say?
Eric Quayle?
Oh, that's right, yeah. Shortly before Doris, his wife, died, she gave me a booklet on golf in Port Erin, and there's quite a good write-up about the Bradder course, but I haven't fully read, the write-up yet, which I lost it, and I couldn't find it. I've been searching for years trying to find it. Anyway, a couple of weeks ago, getting the Christmas decorations out, lifted an old book up, and here it was under the book. But it's quite a good write-up on the Bradder course and the early days
don't lose it again.
Rowany.
We'll have that in a future edition.
Yeah. So it's a good write-up on Bradder.
But you didn't play Bradder though, did you?
No. And I remember the wooden hut just on the corner of the Bradder Road, but never played in it, no. But some of the local rules on the Bradder course, where you can lift your ball out of mine workings, are quite interesting. Other little local rules like that on the Bradder course, they're quite humorous. So there we are, Eric Quayle, scallop fisherman and a good character. And in 1957, Jim Burton. Jim and Iris, they ran the Trend gift shop in Port Erin. Jim was a foreman in Rolls-Royce Aircraft Company as well, and he gave me my first job when I left the army, got fed up with the army, bought myself out. I went to Rolls-Royce, got a job straight away, and I was working under Jim. Not too long. I got a little bit of promotion into a better job as an inspector. So again, Jim was a very pleasant man, and up till I think the middle of this year, Jim was our senior captain until the poor fella died. But yeah, and Iris has donated a painting which we've got in the golf club. Very good artist Iris was. So that's a painting which, we will treasure in Rowany, and a good memory of the pair of them. 1957, that was Jim Burton. 1959, Reg Davis. He was the chemist in Port St Mary. So we did have a couple of fellas in Port St Mary playing, at Rowany. In my time...
that's not a bad thing, though, is it? That's not a bad thing.
When I went to school in Castle Rush, and I'm afraid Port St Mary and Port Erin fellas just didn't mix. when I came to join at Rowany, it was the same here. It was, I don't know why, it was just that there were separate villages. You kept your village, I kept mine, but I was in no man's land because I lived in Fisted, so I was neither in nor out of any of them.
Well, we're just coming to the end of the 50s. We'll just refill your teacup and we'll come back into the 1960s. Okay, welcome back to Rowany TV, the 125th anniversary with Peter Addison, and we've gone through the pre-war and just the post-war years, the 1950s, and we've made our way to 1960.
Yeah. 1960, Colin Davis, he was captain then. He worked for the government, and I think he was in the tax department, but I may be a little bit wrong on that. I think he was in that office down by the railway station. But anyway, he was a government employee anyway.
Could be Customs and Excise.
Customs and Excise. That's him. That's it.
Lovely people.
Yeah. Yeah. So he played a lot of golf up there. Yeah, regular, and yeah, another nice man. Jimmy Quayle, another character. He was the butcher. He had a butcher's business in Victoria Square, and then in the little shop where Kegan now, the undertaker, has got that little business opposite the Station Hotel in Port Erin. It's where the estate agent is as well. So Jimmy Quayle, he was a butcher, and he ran sheep on the course in I don't know, probably the mid-70s, I'd a guess, so somewhere around about there. But again, the course was, it was still trying to get better and better, greens, fairways and things like that. It had been neglected by a lot of people. The club again was short of money, so a little bit of income from Jimmy running the sheep on the course was very welcome. And they had wire fence, an open wire fence, and I think the rule was if you hit the wire you could drop it back and have another go, but if you walked around the course in nice dry weather it wasn't a problem. But of course if you walked round the course with the sheep round there, the droppings stuck to your shoes, they built up like big thick brothel creeper shoes. You got it all round the bottom of your trousers, and by the time you finished your round of golf you had sheep muck all round your trousers. Went in the clubhouse for the coffee, and well, it didn't smell too pleasant at all, but again it was a little extra source of income.
Okay, we are back and we are talking about 1963, and it's John Coburn.
John Coburn the grocer, yeah, captain 1963, and his grocer shop was under the Balmoral on the bottom part of the promenade. And a couple of people who worked for them, a couple of ex-captains, Fletcher Taggart and Mike Ray, they worked for him, and a young Ken Moore as well also worked for them. Yeah, had a very good successful business, quite a big shop then. He joined the RAF, this is no doubt, during the war years, and trained as a ground crew, and one of his postings was to Islay, and he no doubt sampled the whiskey up there. The whiskey was quite good because Maisie and I and Maisie's brother sailed up to Islay, and we sampled the Lafrague whiskey up there. Very peaty whiskey, but quite palatable. So he qualified for the championship and getting knocked out in the second round. So he did quite well there, to get that far. And then John started to suffer ill health, and he started to suffer from MS, and of course, he gradually went down hill, and poor fella passed away. But in his memory, Bill and Sue Dennard, they sponsored a competition in the seniors, and what they do, they give prizes of Coburn's Port as prizes in the seniors. So to Bill and Sue, we thank them for...
Even fully explored that.
No, well they've dug into it.
Yeah,
but that's many years ago.
Okay, we're back on board at 1967, and a guy who we know, Norman Ennett.
Yeah, 1967, Norman Ennett, a good mate of mine, known Norman for many, many years.
He lived here as well.
Yeah.
On Bradwest Road.
Yeah.
Known as Ray.
Ray, yeah. Yeah, brother, yeah. Norman won the boys' championship twice. Won it first time 1949 and then 1951. And he qualified in the championships 5 or 6 times and reached the semi-final twice. But unfortunately for Norman, he didn't quite get to the winning post and win the championship. But Norman had quite a severe incident. His father ran the station garage in Castletown, and the Exide Battery Company offered a tour of all the Manx garage owners, a trip round their Exide factory. So Norman went out as one of the representatives, for the father's business from the station garage, jumped on the plane, off they headed to the Winter Hill. Anyway, as we all know, it was a cloudy, wet day. Lots of mist on the mountains and the hills over the English area. And on the 28th of February 1958, the Winter Hill disaster happened. And Norman was only one of 4 people to survive that disaster. And the only way he survived, he was sitting in the jump seat right at the very front of the plane, and the only people to survive, if I remember rightly, was the pilot, the co-pilot, and the air hostess. They were sitting right up in the front of the plane. The plane broke in pieces, and that part broke away and didn't go on fire. So he was extremely lucky to survive that disaster, but thank goodness, he came out fit and well, and is still playing golf today, but only plays 3 or 4 holes, and then goes back for a cup of tea somewhere with the lads. But Norman had 2 brothers. Ray was a very good golfer. Ray won the championship twice, and he also had another brother, Derek. Derek Ennett is a very well-known motorcycle racer. He raced British bikes to start off, I think AGS's, Nortons, and then went and got a works ride with the Italian bikes. And unfortunately, he was killed in a road race, and that unfortunately was, the end of poor old Derek. But he won quite a few races, both here and in Ireland. But unfortunately, Norman doesn't have any of his race replicas or cups. They were taken by a third party, and poor old Norman hasn't got any control over where they are now, which is a great pity. So that's Ray Ennett, yeah, nice man. He was down the house a couple of weeks ago and having a natter and a cup of tea, And again, memory as bright as a button, and he was there, must have been 2 or 3 hours, and God, how we were in fits of laughter, going back some of the old tales, and going back to all the characters that were there years ago, and very funny, very funny. Right, next one on, 1968, Jimmy the Hawk Harrison. Jimmy was friends with a few people. I'm going to lump a few people together here because this was the people who he associated with. Jack Lewis, Whiz Price, Henry Moore. Henry wasn't the captain, but he played in the 4-ball, and they had many happy hours together. And they used to go up to Henry's house, and after the game, and drink. He used to buy, I don't know how many gallons of ale, but they drank the lot anyway up there in the greenhouse.
So this is the corner house on Bradder West Road, isn't it?
That's right. You're just along here next to Jeff's.
So I've heard about this.
Yeah.
This purpose-built drinking den was quite popular.
So he was. It was a good
was
group
quite
to
a crowd,
be
I
in.
guess.
Yeah. They were all played in the same. Jake's Oates, well, he was another one who was in the group as well. Jake's used to hit the ball and walk, and everybody else used to have to hit and catch up, and he'd go round the course in about 2 3/4, 3 hours. No messing about with Jake's.
Can you talk to your partner about that? Go on, Wilf.
So that was, it was funny when they came back after the game. If anybody did anything wrong, woe betide them. The tale was exaggerated tenfold, and again, very funny, you know, the tales they used to come out with. That was a little bit of a group there. And then we advance a little bit now to 1975. Donald Gelling. Donald Gelling, now what shall I say? Now, forgive me, Donald, if I get this wrong, but he came from rather humble beginnings, but through hard work he achieved tremendous things throughout his life, through work and everything. He worked hard at everything that he did. He became Chief Minister in 1989 to 2006. He was the manager of the agricultural department at the Whitehall, and he received many awards for selling the most JCBs and JC machines in the northwest of England, and he got on very well with Mr. Bamford, isn't it? You know, and he got invited across, you know, for meals and awards and presentations, and he did very well for that. But the Solway Harvester as well, something else he was well known for when he was Chief Minister, that sank in 2000 with the loss of all hands. A very sad do, but Donald thought the right thing to do was to recover the boat and recover the bodies from out of the boat, which he saw that through, and I think that earned the island a lot of very goodwill with the people from southern Scotland. He did, to many people's thinking, the right thing to get the bodies back to the people who, they wanted them back home.
Quite right.
It was a brilliant thing that Donald did. But another thing as well, which I suppose a lot of people are are not quite familiar with, in the early 70s, the club went pear-shaped. And it's not the first time that the club ran out of money and we were in serious trouble. But they had a meeting up the Perwick. I'm not going to go into this is another story. But anyway, we had to run the golf club for about 5, 6, 7 years, all on voluntary help. And with Donald being manager of the White Hoe, the machinery that we had, the fly mows, the tractors, anything that cut the grass, it got hammered. And Donald was very good that he used the services of EB Christians to service a thing at no cost to us and bring them back straight away, so all the volunteers could carry on and use the equipment and keep things moving. It was a hard time, but this is another story. It's certainly, there was a little booklet printed years ago, and this part of the club's history is not even touched on, which I was rather disappointed that there's so much of the history of that era and that time, and it really was a hard job to keep the place going. So that may be for another talk at a later time. So that's Donald Gelling, captain, 1975.
And of course his son is Jeff.
Jeff, yeah.
Island champion.
Yeah. Jeff did very well. Yeah. Still plays golf. Yep, young lad. And again, he's doing very well in his chosen career as well. So, yeah, good luck to them all. And a fellow I'm going to mention now, who was never a captain, but he did a lot of work to help Rowany out. He was a very fair man, a very kind man to Rowany, Ken Cowley. He was the managing director of Oakles Brewery. Ken supplied, I think it was 25 solid silver replica cups for the Falcon Cup. I was very fortunate, I've won 3 of them. But they were a lovely cup. Ken gave these to us, I think, shortly after the war, and a few of them were played 4 and 1, and then somebody, a thief, broke into the brewery and stole the remaining cups, and they were lost for quite a number of years, so you just played for a tin one, I think, then, in between those years. And then this thief got into trouble again. The police caught him, and they went and searched his house, and luckily enough, they found the rest of the silver cups. So they were played for, and I think I won the last one somewhere in the 70s, but I may be wrong in it, but I think I won the last one, so somewhere around about 78, I think it was. But he used to give on Golf Week 3 big barrels of bitter for us, again, which helped the club out financially, and he did tremendous work. Again, in this time of the 70s, which I'm not going to talk too much about, Ken lent us £12,000 to get the clubhouse sorted out, and I don't know whether we ever repaid that sum. We may have done, but again, he never forced us to repay it. He was a very kind man, very good. When Ken finally, succumbed to a little bit of ill health, his son John took over. He helped us out for quite a few years, again coming down, presenting us with more barrels of beer through Golf Week, and sadly, I think, I only found out not so long ago, but John died a few years, I think it was a few years ago, which I didn't know that. But again, the Cowleys, they looked after us with the Falcon Cup and the silver tankards, silver cups for quite a long time, and that's where I'm afraid
we are.
I end now with the captains. But before I go, with this talk, I've managed to get some very good photographs, and photographs are hard to come by. People have got them in their albums or drawers stuck away, and they mean nothing to us. But at Rowany, they are, we need them for the past history of the club. This is a photograph that I got from a friend up in Sulby when he heard I was doing this talk, and that's a photograph of the very early turn of the century, and it's looking on, they look as though the gentlemen are putting out on the 16th green, and there's very few houses. Bradder Glen isn't even, Bradder Course rather, is not even shown in the photograph. So it's a very early photograph. And another one I got this from Graham and Phil Dobson. This is a photograph of the house, the little Fulton behind the 17th green, and this was taken in 1923. The young girl sitting in the doorway is Alice Lillian Clegg, and I think that's a distant relative of Wilful Howie's. But again, if you see, Jed will scan these so it'll be a little bit clearer. There were 3 big humps on the 17th green, which unfortunately one of our greenkeepers dug up and flattened, which to my way of thinking should never ever have happened. But the green there is flat, there's no ridges on it. So when those ridges were put on, I don't know. I think it must have been immediately before the start of the Second World War, because they were there when I first started, 70 years ago, and it's a great shame. But again, if anybody's got any old photographs, memorabilia of Rowany or Bradder Course, we would be welcome to have them. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Peter. Thanks for all your hard work pulling this together, and thank you to those people that you connected with and ended up having long chats, no doubt, and reliving a few fantastic memories. But no,
very good. Okay, thank you.
Peter, we've done the history, now we're going to do some quick fire questions about you, because you are an absolute legend at Rowany Golf Club. You are the octogenarian. That means that you're in your 80s and you shoot below your age. There must be. What's the best round, the biggest gap, between your age and your gross score? Can you remember? Have you...
The lowest I got was 5. And then the latter year, but I'm still playing off 9, and I'm nearly 81 now, playing off 9. So to play off 9 at 80, I'm more than delighted.
Knocking it round under your age. And come on, I mean, you must have had more nearest to pins than anyone in the club. It's folklore, but tell us, it must be a fact.
Well, I've been very lucky at golf. I've always tried to hit the ball straight, and I think this has got me out of trouble many a times. I've won, I suppose, more than my fair share of comps, but again...
Have you won the lot? Have you won you've won the Rowany Trophy?
Yeah, I won the Rowany Trophy. I had a good spell in the last couple of years. I won the Port Erin Cup. I won the Rowany Trophy and the Captain's Prize last year. So I'm delighted, to win anything, but to win some of the majors. Ones. And the Rowany Trophy I won 43 years ago. So I think that's a big gap between any of the majors, whether anybody will have that wider gap, 43 gap between winning them.
We can check that out.
I don't know.
So,
but it's a big gap
so
between
you've played many players. So I'll put you on the spot here. The best ball striker.
This will be a gentleman that nobody will probably have ever heard of. David Ball. David Ball. I think David was the boys' champion of Britain years ago. He was, again, he'd have started with hickory shafts as well, David, probably. He was one of the island's best golfers. It may be, apart from Tom Gandy, but even then, David, if you take the modern clubs against David's clubs of, you know, the old Antwacky clubs and Goblin golf balls and blue flashes, if you compare like for like, David was very good.
Some real ability. He does appear in quite a lot of press cuttings. I think, are we talking 1950s?
Yeah.
1950s, 60s, because I was very lucky to check out from the Trustram Almanac, the newspaper cuttings that were retained by, would it be George Trustram?
George Trustram,
and they're at the Manx Museum, so you can go and have a look at them. A lot of information about Rowany. So we talk about Rowany, and you've seen numerous ups and downs. The course in Great Nick, isn't it? Better than ever?
Course Simon and the boys, and the volunteers as well, many volunteers. They've done tremendous work, planted hundreds of trees around the course. Simon's got the greens beautiful now in the summer. They're all dug up a little bit now, but the work has got to be done. Nobody moans about it, although the odd comment, if you stretch in the Winter League you miss a few short putts, but generally the work has got to be done, and when the summer comes the greens will be as good as any greens on the island. So,
and if not beyond. So